Hello friends, welcome to Clarify and Decode. Today we would be discussing about parallel execution. What are its pros, cons, and what are the key considerations to have when you are using or going for parallel execution. At Clarify Decode, we aim to transform software complexity into clarity. Please go through our other videos as well. So, parallel execution, we all might be knowing it. Let's have a brief about it. So, in any programming language, suppose there is a loop. I'm just writing pseudocode. So, you're looping through a list or any entity, and what we can do is we can have business logic here, whatever, some codes, and finally we would be exiting. So suppose this is of 1 million records. Okay, so with normal for each we would be going sequentially, right? Because only one thread would be executing at a time, right? When we fire it, so suppose the flow comes here, it will run this the first time, again it will run, again it will run. So you see, if we have bigger bulks, it would take a lot of time and it would increase sequentially based on the total list count. So most of the frameworks give you something like a construct for executing it parallelly. Suppose if I say in context of .NET, we have something like parallel dot for each, and there is the loop. So instead of for each, if we do parallel dot for each, what will happen is, if I try to explain you, this loop would be divided in, suppose, x number of thread executions. So if there is 1 million, or suppose 10,000 records, and we have 10 threads, I'm not going into the number of threads, I'm just giving an example. So what will happen is, this would run parallelly. So let me make so there was 10k, right? So the first 1k, another 1k, something like this. So 1k number of loops accounts will run, and here, but the thing is they are executing at the same time. Okay, so suppose 10k was taking like 10 minutes, and now it is being done into a chunk of 1000 records per threads. So we can say it's not the real use case, but 10 minutes by 10 threads. In real case, it would not be like 1 minute, it can vary, and that is what we are going to study today. So you see, definitely there are advantages if we execute the for each loop or a loop with parallel context. So why not use it for everything, right? in all execution, in all your methods, instead of for each, just go for parallelly executing the threads. No, we need to understand that today. Okay, if that was the case, the default would be parallel dot for each in all the languages. We would hear very less about for and for each kinds of things. Okay, let's demystify and clarify about them one by one. So the first thing is order of execution. Suppose in your business logic, something is dependent upon the order. So suppose in the 750th record you found something, and based on that you needed to exit or do something that would terminate the loop or go in a different flow, then would be in mix for if you go for parallel executions, right? Because what parallel execution would do, so if I say suppose based on the count, right, 1 to 100 was executing here, 101 to 200. So here with parallel execution, the sequence is not guaranteed because the thread can randomly go into any bulk. So the first, yes. So what I'm saying is what should be the main considerations when you are thinking about parallel execution. One is like you should understand, yes, there can be performance improvement, but not in all cases because there are some overheads as well. So if we have a very small data set, just like these number of records, and it is executing fine, the performance aspect is not too down, then we don't need to have a parallel execution of this. Okay, how it has performance, not performance but overheads, technically speaking, it's like a number of threads would be created, right? And then for the execution there can be context switching between the threads, which itself is an added thing, right? Also threads are heavy objects, as you might know. So like they're spinning up, creation, memory aspects, all those things. And if we spin up too much, maybe we have thread exhaustion, like we were not considerate and we spun a lot of threads for executing parallelly. It's not a good thing. So that's why we have something like how many, or like we simply say degree of parallelism. Okay, degree of parallelism, this is a concept when we are executing parallelly, how much threads or how much loops we are expecting, how many on a higher aspect threads we are thinking of. We can limit that, like okay, we define that, like in .NET we have max degree of parallelism is 8. We will not have more than 8 divisions. Many frameworks, if we don't define that, it underneath gives us the flexibility to have the optimized number of threads or divisions, and it will work fine. We don't need to define it, and it's up to the framework like .NET, Java, that these number of threads would be spun up. If we want something like, no, I need to define it, suppose for execution division 5, 10, we can also do that. Okay, and one most important thing is this: parallel execution is mostly advantageous for CPU bound work, and it's not so good for IO bound work. Think about it, it will give you confidence why this can happen. Okay, so if you have something like a lot of computation happening, mathematical things, whichever is CPU intensive, go for parallel execution. If it is input output related things, networking, other things, then you should be extra cautious for this. Okay, so I think we have covered most of the points in a nutshell. What can happen if we are thinking to go towards parallel execution? So let's recap it quickly. Parallel execution, first definitely there's performance improvement. The responsiveness would be good. We can make more scalable applications, right? Because it is performing fast. What are the disadvantages? It is increasing the complexity, right? I think pros: fast speed. This is the main thing. And cons: complexity. We are increasing the complexity. Then we are also in the narrow lane of getting into exceptions if we don't write our code very beautifully. Okay, because we may have race conditions between the threads. Okay, and also there would be something that needs initialization of the object, but somehow a different thread came and it tried to access that and it was not initialized. So we are prone to much more exceptions on this. And we have non-deterministic behavior or non-sequential execution would happen. Debug cancellation, it would be more and more difficult, right? We have to be always very mindful of shared resources, what's happening to them. Fine. Deadlocks is another thing. If we don't do correctly, our whole execution would be stuck. Fine. Overall, I think we have covered. Basically, it is very useful, but we should use it judicially. In terms of Batman, you have the power to execute it fast, but you also have the responsibility that the code does not break or degrades. Thank you.